Fortune Tide. This leadership principle comes from a Shakespeare quote, which goes along the lines of there is a tide in the affairs of man, which taken at the flood leads to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of life is bound in shallows and miseries. So, what does that mean? Well, what he's referring there is that when the tide comes in, the ships are able to make it out of the harbor. But if you miss the high tide, if you try going out when the tide is low, you get mired in the mud, your ship gets destroyed, and all the goods inside the ship is spread across the harbor, destroyed by the seawater. And so the application of that then is that in life, you need to go at the opportune moment. There is a moment in time. It's another way of saying the same kind of concept would be to strike while the iron is hot. Now that comes obviously from a blacksmithing concept where you put the steel or the iron into the forge and you get it hot, red hot, even maybe white hot. And then you pull it out and you put it on the anvil and you start beating on it. And when it is hot, it's malleable. But if you hit it while it is cold, it can crack and break and fracture, and you put weakness into the metal. So you need to strike while the iron is hot. A similar phraseology from a different form or a different phase of life, I guess, however you want to phrase that, from the agrarian would be to make hay while the sun shines. Because when it gets wet, hay loses its nutrient value with every single time it's rained upon, and eventually left out, it just rots into nothing. And so it becomes soil, I guess, so you don't lose everything in that analogy at least, but you lose all the capacity to feed your animals through the wintertime if you don't make hay while the sun shines. Now, fortune tide simply means all of those concepts rolled up into one, that there is an opportune moment to act. And if you miss it, if you do not act in that moment, you have missed your opportunity. And Shakespeare, of course, puts it rather poetically. All of life is bound in shallows and miseries. And there's truth there. One of the really tragic lies that are being told in our culture today is we're telling our women they can have it all up front if they just put off marriage and put off child rearing until they've got their occupations nailed down. And the reality is that if a woman hasn't had a child by the time she's 27 years old, she has a 50% chance she will never have children. And so there's this fortune tide in the biological clock for women that there's an ideal time to have kids. And if you put that off, if you miss that opportunity, then you may be bound in shallows and miseries. It's also the truth for men as well in occupational aspects. And you know, if you turn down the promotion, you may never get the opportunity to accept that promotion again. Now, obviously, you want to weigh all those kinds of benefits and whatnot, and maybe the promotion at work isn't valuable enough to move your family across country because you love the connections you have in the community you're in, obviously. But there is a sense in which in every organization, there's a time when momentum is there, when opportunity is there. And if you do not have a bias towards action, that opportunity will reveal itself. And then because you are dithering about and delaying your decision, you miss your opportunity. And it's gone. And it doesn't come again. At least not that same opportunity. And it may very well be that you're because you missed that opportunity, the next door that opens won't be available to you either, because it would only have been available to those who took advantage of the previous one. Whether this be hiring an ideal staff member, whether it be adding on a ministry, whether it be paying down debt, whether it be having that spiritual conversation with an individual who seems open to the movement of the Holy Spirit, whatever it may happen to be, when opportunity comes knocking, open the stinking door. It doesn't come around all the time. And you're not guaranteed a second chance. This is nowhere more true than in sharing the good news of Jesus Christ with somebody. You have no idea if that person will be alive tomorrow. You don't know. And so when that opportunity avails itself, open the door I'm not saying be rude. I'm not saying be callous. You need to be winsome in how you do these things. But there is a fortune tied in the affairs of man, which taken at the flood leads to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of life is bound in shallows and misery.